going again in a second? Oh, we're going to be joined and have a presentation by Bryan Cockerham, the CTO, and also, who are you in this one? Yeah, Stuart Bushman, you guys already met him. So give it up for Bryan Cockerham.
Thank you. How's it going so far, guys? You on your lull after lunch? You ready to take a nap now? All right, cool. I'll try not to make too much noise up here. All right. Can you guys hear me? Okay. All right. So I want to do kind of a live marketing workshop with you guys. I want to try to get some interaction, if you guys would oblige me a little bit, and share maybe some of the stories that you have, things that you've tried. So I'll get into this. I'll get into a little bit about me, my background. I want to share some marketing case studies with you. I've had the opportunity to be a part of some kind of cool things with marketing, and they're pretty out there. So I want to share those with you just to kind of get ideas flowing. Next, I want to talk a little bit about your stories, things that you've tried, and then your setbacks. So it's really easy for marketing to, if you're not like a savvy marketer, if you're not a super bubbly person, it's easy to try marketing, realize that it's hard, or realize that it's expensive, and then give up. And so my main thing here is to make you feel like there are easy next steps for you. One thing I don't want to do is, just to let you know right now, Punchmark does marketing services. This is not an appeal to you to do our marketing services. You'll find here that I'm trying to share ideas with you about finding your voice and about sharing from the heart, and also working perhaps even on you personally. So giving you opportunities to create a brand around yourself, or ways that you can share from yourself in whatever circles, hopefully for the jewelry store, but in any way, basically giving you some sort of an essence. Hope to do that. So if I could give you the right approach and have you start back before we think about things like technologies and channels and things like that, consider our personal brands. So us as people, as human beings. And like I said, make this a little bit less scary. So a little bit about me. So to get into some of the things that I've been involved in, I got super lucky out of school. I went to school for technology. I thought I was going to build technology. I thought I was going to go to work at NASA or something like that. And I was interviewing with all these companies and wearing black suits in New York City with black trench coats and looking like every other candidate in the room when I did it. And a guy reached out to me. He was a chairman of a big marketing company. And he said, "Hey, you still looking for a job?" Like just a one-liner, nothing formal. And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Well, I've seen some of your work. And if you'll do this project for me, I have endless projects." So I was like, cool. So sounded interesting and super casual. So I got into it, and it turned out that this guy is a serial entrepreneur, and he barely sleeps at night. He's just coming up with ideas, and a lot of them turn into either technologies or new companies. And so I went to work for him directly for the chairman of this 100-person company, and did R&D, research and development for him. So I was building these technologies and ultimately building these companies, just one after the other. And some of them panned out, some of them flopped, some of them we built and realized they weren't great ideas, but such is the entrepreneur, right? You come up with ideas and some of them actually stick, a lot of them don't. One in particular was a company called WeCare.com. It had a philanthropic nature to it. So it was an online shopping technology that turned purchases that you made online into donations for nonprofits. It's pretty cool. It took some of his successes in marketing and made it an altruistic thing. So he had done really well in his life and he wanted to give back. And that was one of the ones that became my favorite. I later became general manager, and it took off. So at the same time, I was like trial by fire. I was thrown into this company that was scaling very fast. So learning about scaling a team, scaling technology, marketing, and all those things around it. One of the simplest things, if I were to break down all the things that I learned from this guy, they were create the perfect product, or create the best product, an awesome product, create an awesome team around that product, or hire an awesome team and help you build the product, however that works, and then get it in front of as many people as possible, right? Sounds super easy, super simple. But I watched him just do that repeatedly, and I watched him very successful. And if you look at Punchmark, Punchmark, believe it or not, in 2015 was 3 people. And I was brought on with this trial by fire growth and this growth in technology. And the idea was growth around bringing me on. And so it had gone for about 7 years with a total of 3 people. And in the next 7 years, we grew to 21 people. But I mean, it wasn't all me. We were absolutely primed to be growing at the time. Punchmark really needed to grow. And so it was a combination of a lot of different things, but basically applied the same principles. We had an awesome product, we had an awesome team, and we continued to build an awesome team. And then we tried to get it in front of as many people as possible. So I'll share some of the fun things that we did. So guerrilla marketing, this guy was the chairman of a company called didit.com. You wouldn't know about them. They were a marketing company for Fortune 500s, Fortune 100s. And every new client that they landed was potentially millions of dollars for them. So their cost per acquisition, what they were willing to do to go after one client was pretty impressive. The amount of money they were willing to spend. And so this was back in 2007, we took clear poster tubes and we put inside a didit.com t-shirt and a didit.com frog, because that was our mascot. It was a little stuffed frog. And then a cell phone, a Nokia cell phone, and a letter. And we taped it up and we sent it to CMOs all over the country, mostly in New York, but all over the place. So Macy's, Chanel, Nine West, Best Buy. So all these different high profile people, we sent them cell phones in the mail in clear plastic tubes. And the letter read, we would like to get a hold of you. We have some cool things to share with you. And if you would turn on this cell phone at 10 o'clock a.m. on Thursday, we're going to give you a call. And so it was pretty interesting. The reaction that we got from people that generally dismiss any attempts to get in front of them, because all day long, people are trying to get at these people, right? People are trying to land these big accounts. And by going about it a different way, and in 2007, cell phones were still looked at, everyone had a cell phone, but they were still looked at as an expensive item. And so we were just sending them wholesale to all these different people. And seeing if we can get a reaction. And the reaction was pretty amazing. So people wanted to hear what we had to say. They were probably only willing to give us a couple of minutes of their time, but some of them turned into full conversations, and it worked out to be pretty cool. So this is just one of the interesting things that we did. Another thing was advertising on a hyper-personal level. So this guy, Kevin, another thing that he did was back when LinkedIn was just starting out, he had 11,000 followers. Like, he figured out how to use marketing vehicles way before anybody else. And we figured out that on LinkedIn, you can target a specific, when you're advertising on LinkedIn, you can target a specific position at a specific company. So if you're trying to hit software engineers at Google, you can target them on LinkedIn. So you imagine if you were to target the CEO at Macy's, you're going to hit one person, or the CMO at Macy's, you're going to hit one person. And so we can create these hyper-personalized ads and actually specify the person's name in the ad. And so it was like, hey, Stacy on LinkedIn. And this is also at a time when LinkedIn was growing really fast. So every professional was on LinkedIn. Excuse me. So LinkedIn was sending people emails like, this person wants to connect with you. You were always on LinkedIn. So we started creating these ads, and the ads were like, hey, Stacy, do you want to see something cool? Or hey, Bob, do you want to see something cool? And when the people saw these ads, they were like, this is crazy. Like, somebody literally knows my name. So they were very likely to click on them. When they clicked on them, we had a big landing page that you would arrive at. And it was like, didit.com has some cool things to share with you that we think you'd be very impressed with. And there was an option to opt out. And there was an option that said, buckle your seatbelts, we're about to go for a ride. And enough people clicked the second option, right? And these are mostly high profile CMOs. What they didn't realize was, as soon as they clicked that option, we were setting a cookie on their computer and putting them into an advertising retargeting pool, right? But each pool only had one person. So now, no matter where they went on the web, we knew exactly who they were. And then we had this lead team of very smart people that started following these people on Twitter and on Facebook and all the old social media networks of the time, and started recording things that were happening. So now with an ad, instead of just saying, hey, Stacy, we could say, hey, Stacy, how was your vacation last weekend? And we can do this while they're on like NBC.com. So now like you're targeting these high profile individuals, you're targeting them with a proposal to talk to you about advertising, and you're hitting them with some of the best advertising that they've ever seen before. So it was a unique opportunity. We managed to get in front of a lot of people. We impressed a whole heck of a lot of people. We ticked off. It turned out we made a lot of people angry because you can imagine some of these people were high profile CEOs. They didn't want us following them. They already felt like they were in the spotlight, right? And now we're getting into their personal life. One of them was like, hey, I don't remember the dog's name, but it was like, hey, is Fluffy feeling better? In the ad. So it was like super personal, but it worked out to be pretty cool. So we got a lot of attention out of it. And it was just another way that we used to cut through the clutter. Another interesting story, as WeCare.com, we had a philanthropic nature about our business, and we were always behind the scenes. So we were the people that put together, like, say Macy's.com again, with a nonprofit. And if you shop through Macy's, you were raising money for your nonprofit, but nobody knew who WeCare.com was, and we wanted some validity for ourselves. So we started talking to this guy named Jeffrey Hazlett, and we're sitting in the room, and his PR company is pitching us on what he can do with us and our company, and some of the cool things that we had done up to that point. And so he's in the pitch meeting, trying to pitch us with his whole company, and he gets a phone call in the middle of trying to pitch us. And we're like, what is this guy doing? Why is he taking a phone call in the middle of it? He's like, I have to take this, I have to take this. So he's on the phone, and he's like, I want to tell you about this company called WeCare.com, blah, blah, and whatever. He hangs up the phone, and he's like, you guys aren't going to believe this. And we're like, do tell, but it's got to be good. He's like, that was Donald Trump. And we're like, what are you talking about? And he's like, how would you guys like to be on the finale of Celebrity Apprentice? So this is, however you feel about Donald Trump, this is way before politics or anything like that. We had an opportunity through this guy to be on the finale of Celebrity Apprentice. And so we, if you've ever watched, I wasn't a big watcher at the time, but just getting involved with it, it was the biggest episode of the whole season, and a lot of people were watching. But we walk in the door and we meet Miss America, Dennis Rodman, Penn and Teller, Tim Tebow. The list was endless. LaToya Jackson, lots and lots of people. The Baldwin brothers. It just went on and on and on. We had pictures with all these people. Donald Trump himself, housewives of New Jersey, all types of people. So it was an interesting experiment with what you can do with celebrities. And at first we didn't know, but we had this publicist, we had this PR guy. And one of the things that he told me was, anytime you get a chance, try to get in a line of one of the film cameras, and then you can wind up on TV. So we were like, cool. So they were performing, there was a stage there. Dennis Rodman and his crew performed, and they just did like comedy. Some of them sang, which was crazy. Gary Busey was there, he did a big performance. Blue Man Group did a performance. And I managed, without realizing it, just being me, nosed myself up to the front of the room. And all of a sudden, Donald Trump is standing right here and I'm right here. And little did I know that every time something happened on stage, or anytime Trump had to give some kind of an opinion, the cameras would pan to him, and I was literally right here. So my phone is blowing up, my Facebook is blowing up, but I'm on TV like nonstop, and just by accident. But we walked out of this thing with so much fodder to be used on Facebook and Instagram and all the different. We wound up with like 350,000 followers on Facebook, just a result of some of these things that we did. But partnering with celebrities, we did. I learned through failure mostly that every time we created a new product and tried to get it out there, it was really difficult for us to get out there. So we would partner with celebrities. One of them was LeVar Burton from Star Trek Next Generation, way back in the day. But not realizing the amount of people that follow Star Trek, these Trekkies, every single thing he invited people to do, they just did. And we grew exponentially, like in a weekend, as a result of working with this guy. We did a dinner with Kevin Jonas out in Vegas. But learned some cool things that I'll get into in a little while. And then just working with Kevin, the way he got in front of people, he wrote 3 books in the 9 years that I worked with him. He had 400 speaking opportunities in that same amount of time. And then he wrote for 2 different industry news columns in marketing. So he basically plastered his name all over the place. He's a smart guy. And there were some pretty cool experiences. So getting into why some of these things worked. The guerrilla marketing, the poster tube with the cell phone inside. What we did there is we cut through the clutter. We did something that nobody else was doing. We did something different. So everybody else is trying to target these folks in normal ways, mostly through advertising, email, phone calls, cold calls, that sorts of thing. We did something a little bit different, and it was different enough and out there enough that we were able to get attention from people that people would pay a lot of money to get attention from. The ads that we had, like, "Hey, Stacy, how's your dog feeling?" That's something that also cut through the clutter, but also showed authority. It showed what we were good at, and showed that we were worth paying attention to. The celebrities, one interesting thing about working with celebrities is there's an element of social validation. So as human beings, we look sometimes for, we at least respect the people who are hanging with the cool kids, and we give them a little bit of attention. And so that social validation, being seen with celebrities, combined with the fact that celebrities typically have a following. So you're capturing some of that affinity, you're capturing some of that likeness, and some of that rubs off onto you. If somebody really likes Star Trek, you're hanging out with somebody from Star Trek, they're gonna at least pay attention to you. And then with Kevin, with his books, he did a lot of publishing. So there was a lot of authority in there. To publish a book, you obviously have to be very knowledgeable in your domain, but then he also connected with his audience. So when people were looking for something, looking for knowledge, they read his books, and in that way, he connected with them. One of his books was like a New York Times bestseller for a couple of weeks. I want to bring this back a little bit about connecting with people. So at the end of the day, it's not about the technologies that we use, right? We're always talking about Instagram, Facebook, all the different things out there. TikTok, obviously. At the end of the day, at the heart of it, it's about connecting with people. So it's about simply being human. It's about making connections. And it's about connecting with the current customer. So looking for ways inside your store that you can connect with people that are coming in regularly, and then connecting obviously with future customers. So rather than just thinking about email blasts and ads that you put out there and any of the other marketing that you're doing, on a human level, you have to think about how you're connecting with them. And a little bit of that comes from figuring out who you are and what your voice is, and then also figuring out what your target markets are and figuring out how to cater to those people. And that goes the same, your current and future customers, to your community and some of the surrounding communities. Just before I go any farther, how many people in here are interested in helping the company grow, helping your store grow? All right, awesome. I didn't know if you'd be like, shut up, I'm just a web person, I don't really care about what you're talking about right now. So that's awesome to hear. And how many people feel like you have found your voice, you found your marketing vehicles, and you're basically running with them right now? Awesome, I knew you would say yes. Alex also, yep, you're rolling, you're doing really well. But generally, like a couple hands. All right, cool. So hopefully I can give you a little bit here. So obviously this is about going where the people go. The reason that you have a website is because people are online and people do choose that as a channel. But the best things for you to do are define your audiences, figure out where your people are. And that could be, you have, let's say, an affluent area near you where there's a country club. And so figuring out a way to either partner with that country club or advertise at the country club, sponsor something that's going on there. And look at that audience as that one particular audience, and what is their personality? What are they interested in? And if you have a university in your town, right? Universities usually release young people out into the world, and at some point, young people want to get engaged. And if you do bridal heavily, that might be an interest of you. And so how do you get at some of these younger people and maybe establishing yourself with them as the cool store? Obviously not selling bridal to them while they're that young, depending on your area. Cheap stackable rings and things like that might go over pretty well. But also don't send an email to people who want SMS, right? Increasingly, and this also depends on your message. Some messages are better for SMS, some are better for email. But in general, if people prefer SMS, use that instead of email in some cases. And then, like I said, the reason that we use websites, the reason that we use Google as a marketing mechanism is because that's where people go. I'll let you guys digest that for a second, because being yourself is the root of everything. The reason that I can talk to you as a shy individual is because I'm sharing things that are coming from my heart, and things that I truly believe. And if you start there, then marketing becomes a little bit less scary. So looking at some of the channels that you can choose, blog is the first one. If you're not a prolific writer, but you see somebody saying, hey, you got to be blogging, it's amazing. Or you see all these bloggers out there, these jewelry bloggers out there that have people sponsoring them and everything else. If you're not a prolific writer, don't worry about it. That may never be you. Not saying that it's not worth it to tell your story once or twice on a blog, but in general, that might not be the thing that you're going to stick to constantly. Email, if you are better at talking unidirectionally, if your message is check out these cool things. It's April, so April's birthstone is a nice one, obviously. Share that in an email. That type of thing is perfect for email. Social, if you're more conversational. So if you are of the conversational type, but you're not long-winded in blog form, stick with social. And there's no reason to look over at what the person next to you is doing and say, oh, I got to be doing that too, and stressing yourself out like we see all the time. I know that you guys are busy. When we sit down with you at all these different trade shows and we give you advice, a lot of times it's like, I have to do that too. And you're running your business, you're managing your employees, you're trying to figure out what to buy at the trade show that's going to forecast what people are buying next season. You have all these things going through your mind. You have to start with what's in your heart, and you have to start with what's easy for you, and not try to do all these different things that are out there, and be okay with that. And then TikTok and video, there's a certain personality that you have to do video, typically, not always. I'll show you an example of one where that is not the case and it still works perfectly well. But video skills are something that take a little bit of work to have. On the flip side of that, if you do blogging, the content is everlasting. It's amazing SEO content if you do a blog, right? And because it's everlasting, it just continues to build on itself. So there's a super high value to blogging. And email is great for presenting. You're basically building presentations and sending them out to people. So there's some power in that. Social has the potential to spread, right? So you inject a little bit and it can take off if you have something amazing. I'll give you an example of that as well. And so there are benefits to all these different things. So you just want to pick the one that works for you. The other thing is that you need to remember that you have a story to tell ultimately, right? And if you start by going back and not looking at what's out there, but start with yourself, how your business started, or if you're not the owner, how you got started in your business, right? Why do you work there? Why do you get up every day and go? There's a story there, right? There's a reason that you pick these people to work with in this store, in this community, as opposed to all the different things that you can be doing. You hired each one of your employees, and there's a reason for that. Or if you're not the person who hired the different people, there's a reason, there's a strength in every single employee. If you're picking out jewelry at trade shows, each individual piece of jewelry, or at least each line, there's a reason for it. And getting these out and sharing these with the world give more value to your store or to these lines of jewelry, because you're giving a narrative behind them. They're not just pretty pieces of jewelry anymore. And that's what people look for. People look for human connections. And when you see a beautiful piece of jewelry, you may be attracted to it, but you're building a human connection by telling that little story about it in the background. This guy right here has grown to be a friend of ours. His name is Roman. Roman is, and I love him to death, so I'm not saying anything bad about him here. He's a little bit awkward. Like when you talk to him, he's a little bit shy. He's very reserved, and he has found the perfect niche for himself, the perfect marketing niche for himself, despite this. And he does it for the most part by himself. It's him and his cousin. He and his cousin that do this. He has made mostly engagement rings for some pretty high profile celebrities. And he can go out there and say, look at me, I'm this amazing designer. He can say, look what I've done with my life. He can advertise himself, but he chooses not to because that's not his personality. And I'm sure people have said, dude, I can make a brand out of you or whatever. He doesn't. He never talks himself up. He keeps it about the jewelry and he lets the jewelry speak for itself. But he has more than 600. Stu and I were just checking him out, just because every time we look, it's more. The number is more. And he's up to 600,000 followers on Instagram. And now he has 200,000 followers on TikTok. But essentially what he does, if you want to look at his stuff, it's Forever Diamonds NY. Yeah, that should be it. Yep, at Forever Diamonds NY. Check him out on Instagram. And when he first came to us for a website, we honestly thought that he bought his followers. Like we had never seen someone, he had 410,000 followers on Instagram. We had never seen anything like it. But then if you look at any post on Instagram, there are like 2,000 comments and 10,000 likes. It's insane. And people are tagging other people. So it's not like bots just going in there, you know, that sort of thing. It's legit. Like this guy has built this up over a long time just by showing his amazing pieces. And he could tap into the celebrity part, but he never shares anything and says, hey, this was for so-and-so. He's just like, hey, check out this beautiful ring. He's done an amazing job at it. As a matter of fact, I was at AGS Conclave a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, sitting at lunch, trying to connect with people at lunch. And this guy started blowing up my phone. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? So I texted him. I was like, hey, I'll call you right back. I'm at lunch. So he's like, all right, make sure you call me right away. So I call him back and he's like, hey man, I'm in a jam. I really need your help. And I'm like, what's going on? And it was a Sunday. So he wasn't able to get through to his normal customer success person, client success person at Punchmark. And he's like, look, man, he's like, I made Britney Spears' engagement ring and it just hit page 6 and my site is blowing up. And I just immediately right now want to be able to take the picture of her ring and put it as my homepage banner. So this guy is phenomenal and he's so like reserved, so subdued. But he found, even with that, like you think of marketers as people who are out there, who are out in front of people, and he's not. He figured out what he's good at and he just does that. He doesn't mix it with anything else that he's not good at. I've given you guys a couple of case studies. I've given you guys a couple of examples. I put you to sleep a little bit. How do you guys feel about this stuff in general? Do you feel like you've tried a couple of things and does anyone feel like you've tried a couple of things and you don't know which direction to go at this point? You don't have to give it to me, just like show of hands. You feel like you've tried a couple of things and not necessarily gotten too far when it comes to marketing. Everyone's doing great when it comes to marketing. Awesome. I don't believe you, but that's okay. We at WeCare.com, I was kind of thrown into the fire and I can't tell you how many times I failed before we started to figure things out. We literally were trying anything and we had opportunity after opportunity. The company was growing in general. We had some pretty large nonprofits that were luckily putting us out there to their digital subscribers. But every time that we tried to market ourselves, nobody wanted to know who we were. They just wanted to help the nonprofit and do some shopping. And they were like, basically get out of my way otherwise. So we flopped a lot of different times before we started to grow an audience and grow the number of followers and things like that on Facebook that we did. And so I know that it's not always an easy thing. And it tends to be expensive, right? Advertising tends to be expensive. How many people in the room are doing some sort of advertising? Okay, cool. So just over half, I would guess. Very cool. How many people are doing anything with video? Nice. What are you doing with video? You. That's awesome.
And then instead of, this is kind of cool, but our Punchmark person, who remembers when we had time, But our testimonials have like blogs from our input for customers.
That's
So
crazy.
you can scroll through and read, but you can also click a video and see an engaged couple giggling on the couch with a pretty nice spot.
Very nice. I like that. How hard was it for you to find a videographer that could respond to your needs and get you what you needed? Okay. All right. So,
Yeah, no, it's rare.
right.
It's crazy rare.
It is. We struggle. We have a couple, but because they're good, they're so busy that they're hard to get a hold of. Anyone else, anyone struggling with that? Anyone struggling with trying to find a good videographer? Are you guys doing it yourselves? How many of you are actually doing the videos yourselves? Bunch of you. Okay. And that was us, like up until very recently. And to some extent, we still kind of are. Okay. Let's see, what other channels? Are a lot of you guys doing display advertising, like display ads on websites? Anybody doing that? Just a couple? Okay. And I would say in jewelry, it's the thing that I see the least, which is funny because jewelry is beautiful and sells because it's beautiful. And if you think about it, pictures are better than any other thing that you guys can be doing. But very few people do jewelry. And if they do, or sorry, very few people do jewelry ads that are actual pictures. And I've seen a lot that are the store, right? So like equal parts, a piece of jewelry and the logo, let's say, and not putting emphasis on, let's say, a new line of jewelry or something like that, which I find interesting because jewelry is so powerful just in itself. It speaks for itself as being a beautiful entity. All right, cool. So I'd love to know who is stuck out there, but I don't think you're going to admit it to me. So I'll get into a couple other channels that you could be using. So there's the obvious one. There's the SEO, search in general. So Google, Bing, you name it. Half the time we just do Google because that's so much of the market share. The big thing about SEO and the reason that we use it is because Google is the one place where you can capture the fact that a person has an intent. So when somebody's searching, they're either looking for information or they're looking to purchase, right? And so to be there, to not be in Google at a moment when somebody has an intent to buy is probably leaving something on the table, right? It is generally easy to do. It just takes a little while to convince Google that you need to be ranked higher in Google. And one thing that Stu gets this question a lot, I get this question a lot. It's expensive to do. There's a lot of manual stuff that goes into it. And nowadays with AI, it's getting a little bit easier because you can have AI generate some of the content for you. But it's like, how do we know that SEO even works? What is, at the end of the day, what's the return value for me and how soon am I going to see it? And our answer, unfortunately, often is no idea, right? It's really hard. It depends on your market, depends on how competitive or how aggressive your competitors are being. But how do we know that SEO works? There's a really simple answer at the end of the day on why SEO is so valuable if you can do it right. And the formula basically comes down to how many people in your town are searching for the word engagement ring. We'll start with the easy one. How many people are searching for engagement ring in your town, right? So let's say you pick like a medium town and you've got, say, 5,000 people a month searching for the word engagement ring, right? So now you have 5,000 people. That's your keyword volume. That's your search volume on a particular keyword. So you have 5,000 people searching. And then there's a common adage that the top spot in Google, the top organic link in Google is going to get about 33% of clicks, right? You always look for that top spot. And so the top spot gets 33% of clicks. The next spot gets somewhere between 7 and 11%, depending on whom you ask. And the third spot gets 1% of clicks. So it drops down really quickly, right? And you know that from clicking around on Google. Google usually gets stuff right, and the right thing is usually in the top 2 spots. And the rest of the entire first page is 1% combined. So if we know that you have 5,000 people in your town or in your surrounding areas that are searching for engagement ring, and we know that, let's say that second spot, 7 to 11%, so let's make it easy and say 10%. Let's say 10% are going to click in that second spot, and you work really hard and you get yourself up into that second spot. That's 500 additional clicks on your website every month. Not too bad. right? The hard work is getting Google to understand that you have the authority and you have the correct content that people are looking for to get up into those top spots. And it's, at the end of the day, it's not difficult. It just takes a little while to change Google's mind. Now, if we were to look at this from a website perspective, your conversion rate, hopefully, once your site is rolling and you have traffic coming in, you can optimize your website in such a way that you're getting about 1 to 2% conversion rate. And so if you can get 500 people on the website, and you can even get 1% of them to convert to actually buy something or convert in any way. Let's say you want them in your store or inquire about an item or whatever it is. Just on the word engagement ring, these are high value clientele. If you can get 500 people in, 5 more people every month on the low end, just from being in the second spot, are coming to your store to buy an engagement ring, are actually buying, converting, right? Because you have 500 in, but 5 additional every month. And if you get your site up to 2%, that's 10 additional people. How many people can use 10 additional engagement ring sales a month, right? And this isn't a perfect system, but in general, it does work this way. And now if you start to expand that out to surrounding areas and you start to grow your engagement ring near me to engagement ring in the towns that surround you, you can increase that search volume, which means more people clicking, more people winding up on your site, more people converting. And it's a game. Once you get the traffic in, you start optimizing your site, making sure that people that are coming in find what they're looking for and are able to either purchase it or contact you or whatever they need to do. You can turn this into money. And the cool thing is, it costs a lot of human labor to get yourself up there, but once you're there, it takes someone else just as much effort to bump you, right? So you're there for a while. You can stop. You can kind of put the brakes on, put your marketing dollars somewhere else, or start focusing on other keywords. And that money, that traffic that you built for yourself is going to continue to come in. So there is definitely value there. How many people in the room are doing well in search right now? Not bad. Okay. For the people who aren't, is it that you have another marketing vehicle and you're not interested? Or is it a difficulty with coming up with the first step and not knowing where to go from here, let's say? For the people that don't want to do it, that aren't doing it, raise your hand. For the people who don't see the value in it, let's say. And for the people who do see the value but aren't doing it, how many of you just don't know the next step? Okay, so I take it that you know the next step, you're just too darn busy. Probably what it is, I'm guessing here. All right, so getting into social media advertising. So we talked about Google being a place to go when you are capturing intent, right? Or when you are capturing intent. When you want to be in the place where people are demonstrating that they have intent, social media advertising is a place where you can create intent, right? So let's say you have 4,000 people, 5,000 people searching in your town, depending on the size of your town and the age of the population. Now let's say we boost that specifically for you by creating intent, by showing them products that they can salivate over on social media while they're haplessly scrolling when they're supposed to be at work. Pictures are beautiful, and these things go a really long way. The other thing that's cool is you may know that your Punchmark website ties into Facebook and Instagram catalog, and retargeting is super cheap. So if you want to make it so that when somebody looks at a product on your site and later can be retargeted with that same exact product on Facebook and Instagram, there's a really easy way to do that. So huge value there in social media advertising. Getting through some of the concepts earlier about cutting through the clutter. One of the things that I really want to see people do, you may have even heard me say this before, is when somebody's in your store and you just created a custom piece for them and they're trying it on for the first time. Jim, I know you do a lot of work. Are you typically in front of the person when you give them a custom piece? Fly to them. So you actually could capture that moment of them trying it on for the first time. And what I always thought, I believe it. Okay, cool. Maybe you can share with us at some point some of the videos that you probably have. But I know when I worked at a store, even if we were designing the piece from start to finish, and conceptualizing it and everything, the person said, oh, I'm having a ring designed, and telling all their friends that they're having this ring designed as if they had done it all, right? There's like a lot of ownership on their side. So the excitement that they have when they get the piece for the first time is pretty valuable if you can capture it. What people aren't doing in a lot of cases are tagging that person on Facebook or Instagram and putting it out there, right? Taking that video of them trying it on for the first time, capturing that smile, and giving them all the credit for making the piece, like giving them all the pride. But by tagging them, now you've cut through the clutter. Now you have a direct emotional tie with their friends, because when their friends see it, first of all, typically socioeconomically, the way the world works is a lot of their friends are probably in a position to also go out and buy some jewelry from you, right? So now you've just created a connection with the people that are around them, and you're helping them tell their own story, but you're doing it from your Facebook or your Instagram. It works out. I believe it would be pretty powerful. Jim seems to agree. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity there, and I don't see a lot of people doing it. Does that seem like something that would work? I would love to see this in action. And then when it comes to social proof, social validation, the other thing that we've done to take small businesses, and as small businesses ourselves previously in New York, some of the things that we did was we did a lot of philanthropic events, and partnering with philanthropic events in your town. And we have a client who crushes this. She does this so well. There's a big, what is the nonprofit? I think it's Make-A-Wish. She sponsors this event that they do on the beach every year, and she gives everyone a glass of champagne. And inside of every glass of champagne, there's a little CZ, but one of them is a diamond, right? And so you imagine you have a ton of people doing a toast on the beach with a CZ in their glass, and one of them has a diamond and no one can tell which is which. So guess what? They have to go to her store. It's genius. Like it's a pretty amazing thing. And it's something that she came up with over the years. She became a sponsor. Then she partnered with Forevermark, and Forevermark put in money. She became the title sponsor. And then she came up with the idea to do the champagne toast on the beach. And now it's a huge thing for her store. Pretty awesome. But doing these philanthropic events and aligning yourselves with places that people put their affinity, places that people look to and have positive feelings about, whether they be important people in the town. So doing something for the mayor, obviously, creating an engagement ring for a CEO of a major corporation in your town, figuring out how to get in there and doing that, and then turning it into something that you can share. And I don't mean to twist it and make it to be PR, like you're just doing it from the PR angle. Because at the end of the day, you need to make a human connection with them, and then you're merely sharing your story by doing this. But there's a lot of opportunities in positioning yourself in a way that you can do these sorts of things. And then when I first started 7 years ago, the knot was super big. So anytime that somebody wound up in the knot, there was an authority there. And having that little tag on your website that was like, as featured in the knot. But we had one client who was here last year, who for a really long time had a blog and a section on their website about proposing. So really cool ideas about proposing. And so what happens is you have these young men typically that are proposing, have no idea how to do it, right? They're scared to death. And so they start searching on Google, like best proposal ideas. Well, guess what? They wind up on this guy's website, and guess what? This guy also sells amazing engagement rings, right? So it's a cool way to close the loop. But becoming that authority and becoming the person who has the answers is a pretty cool marketing vehicle. This is my ending message to you. Hope you guys believe this because it's true. At the end of the day, it's all about you and your story and coming from the heart. And marketing doesn't have to be scary. And that's all.